Hey, well, tonight I'm angry at the Democrats, and last night I gave you some reasons as to why I was angry at the Republicans. I have very good reasons as to why the Democrats have let us down. Let's get to it. So let's deal with the first thing. The Democrats, at least in my living memory, were always the representatives of labor. They looked out for the blue-collar workers. They looked out for the common man. They looked out for ordinary, everyday Americans. And yet, when we look at Democratic presidents, 8 years of Obama, 8 years of Clinton, even during those 8 years of Democratic control, the losses suffered by American labor are ridiculous. I mean, manufacturing jobs have gone everywhere else in the world except to America. Democrats have done absolutely nothing to protect those jobs. I blame the Democrats. They are the natural supporters of labor. Republicans support capital. Democrats support labor, i.e. Republicans support the owner of business trying to minimize how much gets paid to labor, and Democrats used to support labor against Republicans. No more. Now Democrats and Republicans are in the same boat. Democrats have really let labor down. Let's deal with the second major issue. The second major issue is that the Democrats historically have been our primary defenders of civil rights. Whenever we were concerned about government overreach, whenever we were concerned about the FBI or the CIA acting against us, the American people, it was the Democrats who we relied upon to represent us and to protect us, specifically the ACLU, but also Democratic congressmen and senators who in days gone by, I guess we could call them the good old days now, the Democratic Party used to protect us. They don't any longer. Okay, that's two strikes against them. Is there a third? Yes, there is. The final criticism I have of them is something more recent. It seems to be that the Democratic Party has completely run out of ideas. They are now held hostage by a socialist group, a wildly radical left wing of their party, and they seem unable or unwilling to return back to a reasonable center. They are going to be destroyed by their embrace of these radical ideas. There's no way that America, the land of individuality and individual achievement, is ever going to agree to be a socialist, although socialism often occurs without the population agreeing. If you look through history, it's an unpleasant revolution in many cases. We may be facing something similar to that here. And my final argument against the Democrats these days is they have jumped the shark. Now, I don't know if you know the meaning of this expression. It actually is an old expression. It dates back to the 70s when a very popular TV show called Happy Days, the most popular character called the Fonz, water skied and jumped over a shark, and it was considered to be the end of the show, and that phrase has actually become known as the end of a show because it signifies that the show itself has run out of ideas and is doing desperate, ridiculous things like having a man in a leather jacket water skiing behind a boat jumping over a shark. Now, this is exactly the situation we find ourselves here with the Democratic Party. They have completely lost control. They are taking this recent debacle over the election results, and they are escalating past 11, as Spinal Tap would say. They're talking about anybody who supports Trump being disallowed from having a job. They're talking about anybody who was in the Capitol being prosecuted. They have jumped the shark. This country is based upon political discourse and people being able to speak openly to each other about their ideas. The Democrats are going to try to end that, and it's going to work against them. I don't know if you have any idea how the history of these quote-unquote revolutions unfold, but inevitably they end up eating their own, and they're going to end up eating the Democrats who thought that they were in control of this mob. The Democrats have completely lost the plot, just as the Republicans no longer remember what identified them as a legitimate political movement in this country. So the Democrats have veered so far afield that even people who are liberal in outlook are going to be forced to abandon them. Just as the Republican Party has made itself irrelevant in terms of not responding to the events of today, so the Democratic Party is making itself irrelevant by overreacting to the events of today. I don't believe that either party will be around in its present form over the next few years. I think neither party deserves to exist in its present form. The Republicans have abandoned everything that made them Republicans, and similarly the Democrats have abandoned everything that we admired about them. Are we ever going to wake up?